I'm going to run down to Pam.
Yeah.
I can't just call and said the Zoom registration link isn't working. So she can fix that.
Okay. Folks, Mark just got a call from the public that the Zoom registration link isn't working. So I'm going to give this a couple seconds while they try to do that, just to make sure people can get into the meeting and not start.
We do have an attendee, Dave, just so you know, so the link has to be working.
Okay.
Dave, I think you're on mute.
Andrew, can you send the link again to Pam's email and she will check to see that it's up there?
Yeah, I'm actually in the back end of the website right now checking the link. It's working for me, though I had to refresh my browser after I clicked the link to register. So it appears that the link is working.
Okay, that's enough for me then.
I don't know that Mark heard that. You want to tell Mark?
Mark, did you hear that? I think he was at his desk when it happened.
Actually, I didn't.
Oh, he said the link, Andrew said the link is working for him, though he had to refresh his browser.
Okay.
So he says the link is working.
All right. Thanks.
So we'll, Pam, you all set?
Going live in 9.
I'll call this Topsome Board of Selectmen meeting to order on May 20th, 2021. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patty, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. David Douglas.
I am here.
Marie Brilliant.
Here.
Ruth Lyons.
Here.
Matt Nixon.
Present.
Roland Tufts.
Here.
100% in attendance.
Thank you, Patty. Town Manager's report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Waltz, the Assistant Town Manager. The Community Center Exploration Survey that we've been talking about the past few Select Board meeting is now up and live. So far, we've had 140 responses. We're hoping to get 1,000 or more. The link's available on the town website. We're also going to have postcards with the links to the survey that are available at Town Hall, and will also be handed out at the transfer station and then at upcoming town events. Next item is the annual Town of Topsome Fishing Rally. It's going to take place at the Topsome Ponds. Some people refer to as Big Eddie and Little Eddie at the end of 94 Townsend Way. No license is required for adults who bring children for that one day only, which is Saturday, June 5th from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The program is co-sponsored by the Topsome Public Library, the Parks and Recreation Department, and the Solid Waste Facility. Registration is now open for summer recreation programs. Please go to the Parks and Recreation page of the town website. Route 196 will be paved from the intersection with Route 201 to the Mayor Meeting Bridge during the month of July. All work is planned to be done at night. A reminder, the town meeting is Wednesday, June 2nd at 6:00 p.m. at the Topsome Fairgrounds. Please enter from Route 196. The municipal referendum question regarding whether Topsome shall establish a charter commission, as well as the school budget validation vote, are both scheduled from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Mount Ararat High School. Absentee voting is started at Town Hall during regular business hours. Included in the meeting packet tonight for the Select Board are our proposed procedures to implement the electronic treasurer's warrant authorization if it passes at town meeting. Feel free to make any comments to us if you'd like to change the procedures. We're not asking that you pass them. We'll do it internally, but just wanted to give you a chance to weigh in on them if you wanted to do something different. And then finally, as probably most people have already heard, this year's Memorial Day observances will again be virtual. A video is going to be shown on the local access channel and also available on the website memorialdaycommittee.org. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions of the Assistant Town Manager? Matt?
Thank you. Just two questions. So the survey went live today, is that correct?
Yes, it did.
And you have 140 respondents.
Yes, as of 4
Excellent.
this afternoon.
Good deal. And the other one was, do you want comments on the electronic process now, the warrant process now, or do you want to talk about that a little bit later on?
I'll leave that up to the chair.
You're muted, Dave.
I would say, because it's not on the agenda, Matt, I think it's more of a one-off giving opinion. And I don't mind if people have a couple things they want to say now, just as ideas, but I don't want to get into a discussion about it.
Okay.
So I have no problem with, hey, I saw this, what about this?
Perfect. That's all I got. It's really simple. I love the process. It looks fantastic. My one concern is that, let's say we get 3 people who sign off on it really quickly, and then it gets submitted. That doesn't really allow for a lot of time for other folks who might not necessarily be able to get in there or read it for that matter. I know I keep tallies on some things, and I think it's a really good way of looking at the town's operating week to week. It's a really good picture anyway. So I guess my only suggestion would be if we could maybe add like a 2-day period for review to that procedure, just so it doesn't immediately get shipped off. 2 or 3, it doesn't really matter to me, but does that make
Sure.
sense?
Yep, absolutely.
And on those lines, the one comment I was going to make is I believe it needs to be, right now, if I recall as reading it, I don't have to read it to sign it. And I believe everybody should have to have it sent to them, or they have to begin to look at it. If I read it correctly, I don't think anyone has to look at it. And I disagree with that. We've got to have, and if it means you email it to all 5 of us, however it may be, or there's a link for just us to go in through the town's website, it's got to be available to be looked at.
Yeah, that was my comment. The third bullet needs to be updated. It should say notify the selectmen, but it also needs to provide the warrant, whether it's by a link or by an electronic copy. It needs to be available for us. It doesn't say that right now.
And our intent, and certainly we'll make it more specific, was that we would scan the warrant, but not all the bills, not the 2 inches of bills that go along with it, but the actual warrant document we would. And then you could ask us if you wanted more questions on a particular item, and then we could send you for that item.
Yeah, just right now, it doesn't, it's not written so that we're actually getting the warrant to look at, so.
We'll write that in there.
That was my questions, and just to understand it clearly, there will be a hard copy in the Board of Selectmen's room
Yes.
also to check. Okay. Those were all my concerns too. Those were my thoughts. So thank you.
Okay, we'll make those changes.
And Mark, another question. So we have absentee voting going on. MSAD 75, I believe, has having their public hearing tonight on their budget. So everyone doing absentee voting isn't voting on the school budget as we speak?
Exactly. If they came in to pick up ballots, they were told they'd have to wait till after Thursday to return the school one.
Okay. Okay. So any changes made tonight, in theory, any changes made tonight at the public hearing, we'll get those changes, and so they'd have to come in probably next week sometime, not even tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And the cutoff for absentee voting is it next Thursday or the week after?
Good question.
It's
No.
usually, if we follow the state rules, it's the Thursday before the election.
Okay, then I'm sure that must be what it is.
Yeah.
And we've never had this many questions. Good list tonight, Mark. Way to go.
Good job.
Next up, update from boards and committees, reports, update from TDI, ECB, John Shattuck, Topsome Economic and Community Development Incorporated Director. John, have a way.
Good evening. Thanks, David. Just a few items tonight. Start with some passing of the torch, I guess. Pam Heil, the Saginaw County Administrator and Topsome resident, more importantly, is retiring in June. She's been a great colleague and a long-serving municipal and county leader. Bill Post, who some probably remember from being town manager in neighboring Bodenham, is succeeding her and will start the middle of next month. Bill Napower, executive director up at McEd, is also retiring in June. Bill led McEd to much greater financial stability, which has been wonderful. And we're proceeding with a hiring process with the idea of getting that wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. I certainly regret, and I'm sure the town does, the loss of a couple of folks who have been really good and important regional leaders and have certainly benefited the town and our whole area. We recently received a communication from T.Y. Lynn, Darren Bryant, on behalf of the work they're doing with Maine DOT regarding bridge infrastructure. And they were looking for input from the town on what we were looking to do for street lighting, where they might intersect lower Main Street lighting, where that would intersect with anything going on with the bridge. Thanks to colleagues in Public Works Planning, the manager's office, Parks and Recreation, all of whom met and helped define what it is the town wants to get from these structures. And many minds make light work. The functions we looked for included high sockets for holiday lighting, banner brackets, and a little bit of a departure to get low sockets to run events in what would eventually be the Pocket Park or abutment overlook there, where the old bridge now crosses the river. So the idea was to make sure that we had everything accessible to be able to support public events, food trucks, musicians, what have you. So thanks to everyone for helping get that well defined and off to MDOT. And finally, on some business retention issues, I'm continue to work with Topsome resident and Air Force veteran, Matt Yausch. He is providing the town with his research services as part of a master's degree capstone or research project. He's developing a survey of Topsome businesses to assess how the town can best help them as they work through recovering from the impacts of the COVID emergency. We're looking for seeing those survey questions probably in the coming week or two. Gratified to the work of the Community Center Committee, since they've, I think, broken the trail on setting up the survey. So I'll be talking to my colleagues about that to make sure that we don't reinvent the wheel that you guys have already put together. And finally, the recently announced changes in the CDC guidelines for fully vaccinated folks are generating a lot of optimism for a much improved summer economy this year. So we're looking forward to getting that finalized and moving forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John or around the room? Seeing nothing. Thank you, John. And Mark just said to all the panelists, if you didn't see the note, just got word absentee voting ends on Thursday, June 3rd.
Yes, I thought.
All right, we are correspondence. So this is the portion that if you would like to call in, and the phone number is 373-5090. You could call in if you had any public comments that you would like to make. You as well could utilize the function here within Zoom, and we will try to find that you are ready to make a comment. And while we wait for if there is any comments to be made, I do have a letter, and I think all of us received this, and it reads, "Hi, my name is Jim Hamilton. I grew up in Topsome. I graduated from Mount Ararat and lived in Portland ever since, attending and graduating from USM. I have a couple licensed adult use marijuana businesses, one cultivation in Auburn and one retail store in Portland. I would love to open a retail store in the town of Topsome where I grew up. I know that the town has opted in for all adult use marijuana businesses, excluding retail stores. I am unsure you're aware of this, but the adult use marijuana market is highly regulated. The same cannot be said for the medical market. You may or may not know, but medical retail stores have no testing requirements. A list of some of the key differences between adult use marijuana stores and medical marijuana are: adult use retail has strict seed to sale tracking programs where the product can be traced from growth to the consumer's hands. Adult use retail has strict testing for microbial and THC content. A medical edible listed at 100 milligrams could be 10 times that, since no one is requiring testing of these products. Adult use retail has strict licensing process to weed out those with without a clear or functional business plan. Adult use retail has strict packaging and THC limits for edibles and strictly enforced. Adult use retail sales are reported to the state in real time. All the money is going into the system is being taxed, unlike many medical shops. Adult use retail ultimately has solid set of rules that need to be followed and enforced. The same cannot be said for medical stores running in Topsome. Allowing adult use marijuana retail stores would be a much safer bet for the community as a whole in the current medical storefronts in Topsome. I would like to know if the town is considering allowing these adult use retail stores in the near future, as I would like to move and opening a storefront in Topsome as soon as possible. Thanks for taking the time. I would invite any of you to come take a look at my retail store in Portland at 377 St. John Street. So you can see for yourself, we run a discreet and secure retail store the town could be proud of. Jim Hamilton, Grassroots Marijuana. We've gotten these in the past. I've gotten them and I shared them with the board, sent directly to me, and without, this one was sent to all 5 of us without objection. I would reply to this the same as I had in the past. Our rules in town were passed by the citizens of Topsome, and it is a very new process to the town. I do not have any interest nor comfort level of going back to the town and talking about another step in this direction. So if you would like, I'll answer to Mr. Hamilton, stating kind of what you guys saw that I wrote to the last gentleman that wrote to me and I shared with you, that we are in our infancy and I'm not looking to make any steps to change that until there is a direct call for it from the citizens. So, all right, I see nodding heads.
Right.
I'm looking, I do not see any phone calls. I do not see any hands up anywhere. Did anyone else have correspondence that they wanted to read or speak to? No. All right. We will move on to adjustments to the, you know what, actually, I'm going to put this under correspondence. So to everyone at home and for the board members, I would like to start making plans with the town manager and or assistant town manager for us under the new guidelines that we go back to in-person meeting, the second meeting in June, because we do not have a first meeting. So if without objection by the board, I'd like to put that back to the manager and assistant town manager, that we get that and we're ready to go coming in June.
Yep, me too.
That's good.
This, I believe, is everyone's last chance to call in and put my radio skills to use, and I don't see anybody. So we will move on. Any adjustments to the agenda? I don't have anything. Nothing. Consent calendar, approval of the minutes of the regular selectmen meeting, May 6, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Second motion.
I'll make the motion. I made the motion, Ruth seconded. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
I just wanted to beat Matt.
Guys,
Sean,
can't wait to see in person who's climbing for a microphone. Consideration any appropriate action on annual appointments. That's item 2148. Let me scroll to the sheet with all the, sorry, folks. All right, 2148. This year we have Tom Lister as codes, Andrew DC as alternate zoning officer, Chris McLaughlin as interim EMD director in civil emergency, Chris McLaughlin as fire warden and health officer, Dennis Cox, the road commissioner, Linda Dumont, registrar of voters, Brian Batchelder, weights and measures, Ralph Williams, the town historian. I make a motion that we appoint all of those individuals to annual appointments.
second.
Attaboy rolling. Patty, would you take the vote, please?
I will. David Douglas, are you in favor of your motion?
I am in favor.
Very brilliant.
In favor?
Ruth Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon,
Favor.
and Roland Cox.
In favor.
Unanimously in favor, motion's passed.
Thank you. Item 2149, consideration and any appropriate action on the reappointments and new appointment of various boards and committees. Those appointments are Thomas Sawyer, a reappointment to assessment review, and Michael Nelson as to assessment review. Jotham Trafton, reappointment to Board of Appeals. Following reappointments are to TDI are Chris Wazalewski, Curtis Neufeld, and Curtis Picard. To TDI, Ed Mendez is a reappointment / alternate to the History Committee, and Nancy Randolph, a reappointment to the History Committee. Thomas Schmoller, reappointment to the Topsome Housing Authority. Linda Dumont, Topsome Housing Authority. Ben Dang, reappointment to Topsome Housing Authority. Josh Spooner, reappointment to Topsome Planning Board. And this evening, we interviewed Audi Arbo, a new appointment to the Conservation Commission. I will make a motion that those following names are reappointed and or appointed, in the case of Ms. Arbo, to those committees.
Second.
Patty, would you take the roll, please? You're on mute.
I'm sorry, David Douglas,
I am in favor.
Marie Brilliant,
In favor?
Ruth Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon,
Favor.
and Roland Cox.
In favor.
Unanimously in favor, passed.
And to those at home, that still leaves 2 openings on the Board of Appeals, 2 openings on TDI, 2 openings on the History Committee, 1 opening on the Planning Board, and 1 opening on the Conservation Commission. So still many people needed to help our community move forward. We are on to 21-50, consideration any appropriate action on the adoption of complete streets policy. Andrew, is this you this evening?
It is.
All right.
Good evening, guys. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Comp Plan Implementation Committee. As we discussed at the last meeting, their first action as a committee was to advance on developing and asking you to adopt a complete streets policy. The comprehensive plan and the planning and public participation process for that plan really led to understanding that the community had some major concerns about the provision of safe, accessible spaces within our street right of way, making sure that our streets are safe for all types of users. A complete streets policy has been drafted. It was included in your packet, along with a couple of example policies, one from Brunswick, one from Bath, and then the state Department of Transportation's policy that they adopted about 5 years ago. You'll note that all of these policies are very similar. They have essentially all the same components, and most of them are based on kind of some national guidance and direction and frankly model policies. Ours is no different than that. So we hit on some of the key components of what are we trying to achieve, where is it applicable, who is responsible, what the accountability is for, and then if there are issues or problems, how it gets resolved. What I'd like to do is just kind of give you a summary of each of the headers in the policy. I'm hoping that you've had a chance to read it in detail in the last week or so, and then I'll just receive any questions that you might have. Unless you want me to read it, but I think you probably not. There you go. Certainly vision and intent. This is just stating that, what we believe as a community is that there should be a safe space for all users on our roads. Diverse users. That's the section that says who we believe is a legitimate user on our roadway. And that definition is maybe wider than you might think. Oftentimes you think complete streets policy, we're talking about bikes and peds. We're also talking about people like large truck drivers, freight and commercial drivers, bus passengers. Really, we're talking about everyone has a place on the street. Full commitment. This means that we are going to apply a policy in a way all the time, that when we are doing work, regardless of it's a planning project through the planning department or an implementation or construction project through the public works department, or even activities and operations by our public safety operators in our roadways, we're going to do things that facilitate safe spaces for all users. There are certain times in which it may not be appropriate to do it, and there is a clear exception section. So the next section of the policy says, in essence, if there is a substantial additional cost, or there is just a kind of a nonsensical reason why we shouldn't do something, there's a pathway out of that. The detail is that that is something that would require a recommendation from the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, and then your action as being kind of the governing body for the community. You need to explicitly state, we are not going to be building a sidewalk or widening this road or narrowing this road because of whatever the rationale is that's provided. Jurisdiction. This policy is applicable everywhere within Topsome. In addition to that, we're actively going to, when appropriate, work with other agencies that might have facilities or infrastructure within our community, like the DOT, or a neighboring community like Bodenham or maybe Lisbon or Brunswick, where we might want to coordinate on an effort or a project, or note that there are users in one community that are going to another and how to best provide facilities for them. Design, this kind of steers us to the direction of where are we going to get the information to make improvements? What are we going to base our professional recommendations on? We're going to use absolutely recognized sources of information. So the AASHTO manuals, the MUTCD, the PROAG, which is the ADA guidelines. All those things are official documents that help to inform how to build complete streets. That's what we're going to use. Land use and context sensitivity. This acknowledges that not every street in our community is the same, and the users on every street are not the same. And infrastructure that we might contemplate putting on our streets doesn't need to be the same on every street. It is not appropriate to put a sidewalk in certain locations in our community. It's not appropriate sometimes to widen a street because of the land use and what's going around. Kind of the issue or the concept of destinations and areas where people are coming from. We need to take into account, hey, on this side of the street, there's a neighborhood. On this side of the street, there's a grocery store. People are probably going to want to cross there. And in that location where we have those land uses, we might want to provide an enhanced mid-block crossing in order to facilitate safe access for those users. Performance measures. As a policy, we want to see, is this working? Are we actually making change in our community? Are we providing more safe spaces for all users? So this provides kind of a very basic set of metrics that we as a staff will take care of managing and then reporting out on an annual basis. And then the last two sections are about kind of moving forward and how we implement projects. So the next is project selection criteria. When we think about prioritizing capital projects perhaps in the future, or even when we submit grant applications, maybe we have limited resources when it comes to seeking out dollars, or we're capped in how many we can spend, there are priorities in which we need to advance on these types of projects in a more direct way. So projects that achieve connectivity, multimodality, economic development, safety, and equity. Things that do all five of those, we want to absolutely move aggressively on. The final is implementation steps. We're going to do this day in and day out. We're going to integrate this into our routine of everyday operations. So frankly, I hate to say this, but we're already doing the things that are on this policy. When I work with Dennis on projects that he's doing within our streets, he is coming to me with concepts and ideas for, hey, I noticed that there's this user using this street. Should we do this type of infrastructure? We're already doing this. This policy is putting us all on the same page and also actively promoting, hey, citizens of Topsome and citizens of Maine, Topsome is a place that cares about all users and is a safe place to drive, walk, bike, drive your large truck through. So in short, that's kind of a summary of the policy. Also in the packet last meeting was kind of a 3-page handout on the benefits of complete streets. Just wanted to be clear, that was something I stole from another community, but it provides kind of some very general ideas of, the places that adopt street policies like this and develop streets that represent kind of the vast variety of users. They're the ones that are also healthiest and most economically diverse. They're places that people want to be, live in and work in and desire to be an active member in. So I'm happy to receive any questions that you might have. Susan Ray Reeves, who's the committee chair, is also available. I think she's an attendee, and I'd be happy to promote her if you have questions for she as a representative of the committee. Thank you.
Anyone? Yep, Matt.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew. This is good stuff. I do have a couple of concerns. Well, not like horrible concerns, but things that I think we may still need to work on a little bit, at least in my opinion. In looking at the full commitment section, which I didn't actually see in the other examples that were provided in Brunswick or Bath, there wasn't actually a full commitment section in either of those. There was a kind of an important nuance because I think in Brunswick's, most of this is discretionary up to the manager. So that's kind of an important nuance here. So this is a blanket concept, which is cool, but I just wanted to point that out. It's also, I'm going to start wordsmithing here to a certain degree, but the second paragraph where we're talking about reliable movement of all road use within the project area, regardless of their preferred mode of transportation, that would essentially open it up for like riding dirt bikes and side-by-sides and Sherman tanks, stuff down the road. I guess what I would be interested in having there instead would be something along the lines of all legal forms of transportation on a public way or something to that effect. And the final thing, kind of a broader concern, I think, is the other examples that were provided have a pretty clear set of exemptions. This document points to data and documentation, which, by the way, I've seen a lot of that terminology in a couple of other documents recently too. This is strange, but regardless, this document says, let's see, so anyway, there's no particular sets of guidelines or guardrails here. And because the comprehensive CPIC and the select board, basically their membership changes frequently. So determining whether or not something's going to be exempted is going to be completely subjective if there isn't a list of things that will be there, and it will be subject to the whim of those bodies, basically whoever's sitting on the body at that point for that exemption. So I think in order for me to feel comfortable moving forward with this, I would want to see something similar to what was in Brunswick and Bath plan, where they sort of lay out, where those stops are and what exactly will happen. Aside from that, I like this. I think it's good stuff. Those are my concerns.
Yep, Ruth.
Andrew, I think it's good stuff. I read it all, and of course, I'm not an engineer, road person, but there's just things that concern me about our roads. And one thing I'll address right now is Main Street going down past the intersection where the church is and the other road stuff. Those roads are narrow, and you cannot, if there's bicyclists there, you cannot pull over because traffic's coming one way, traffic's going another. Has that been addressed? What can we say? You can't say no bikes or what, but how could that be addressed? Because I think it's very dangerous. It's dangerous for the driver. It's dangerous for the cyclist. And it's not only that area, but that's the biggest area I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You hit it, right? We don't have a safe space for all users of that road right there. So do we need to provide a bike lane? Do we need to widen the road there? Do we need to pave a shoulder? Do we need to put an off-road bike lane? Those are all options that, if it's an unsafe situation because we need to segregate users, then we need to step up and provide that infrastructure. If that's not a possibility, if there's some barrier to doing that, then are there policy exceptions that we could use? Are there other tools besides infrastructure? They are. But the infrastructure and design is the best way of providing safe spaces. Actually providing an area that someone can bike in, someone can walk in, and someone can drive in that don't have conflicts.
Andrew, I've got,
Thank you.
Andrew, I've got several things, and it's down the same road as where Matt was. When I first read this, I made a note that there's a word, this seems very stern, the way this document's written with the amount of wills and shalls. And it became even more stern once I read the 3 examples that you gave, that those other examples are not that dictative, I guess. These are goals, right? In my opinion, as a community, as I listen to you talk, our goal is to meet these objectives where we can. And I don't get that feeling when I read this document. When I hear you talk, I do. When I sit and think and I look at this stuff, it's always, how will this be viewed 10 years from now when none of, it's a whole different set of people here and they're looking at it and such. So that's my first bit of feedback to it. I think Matt referenced, and I thought Brunswick was the same one. I thought they had more reference to that within it. And something ours doesn't mention at all is monetary restrictions. There are some things that we don't mention that in our policy here once. That's a large concern to me. Under clear, so.
Remember when I wanted granite curbing? I got shot down. It's a legitimate concern.
I guess to respond to both Matt's concerns from earlier and the one that you just raised, there's a desire for some clear guidelines or rails for the exceptions territory. And the one that comes to immediate mind is cost. So, if a project is, the cost is raised by how much percentage? What's the acceptable limit there?
I think the wording that Brunswick used may be more palatable, that it fit within the budget, within the scope of the budget. Did some of this take that project to a level that we couldn't accomplish other items? I don't know is it's going to be a percentage, because then again, you start going down that stern roadway, and there are many active people that if it's written here and we don't do this, this will come back. So that's my greatest concern, is that it's very, I liked Brunswick's layout, honestly, probably even more than Bath. And it pains me to say that out loud, right? I'm not a Brunswick guy anymore. So, I got a whole bunch of stuff here. So I made a bunch of notes. Listening to you, Andrew, describe this. If I wasn't reading and looking at any of this, yep, my hand's up. I'm in favor of, as we talk about it, right? Like you said.
I've got a suggestion then, Dave. No
Yeah.
policy, just make all the decisions mine.
Well, there we go into the clear exceptions that I'm going to talk about. So I think the part in here of upon recommendation by the CPIC committee, I think that's overstepping. I think that's overstepping what they are asked to do. I envision this staff to the Board of Selectmen is how I envision it. And then I got a question here, the 30-day, so further, any and all documentation or data provided for the purpose of demonstrating a proposed exception shall be publicly available for 30 days. So the Board of Selectmen are elected, and we're put in for 3-year terms because the people expect us to make decisions, right? We don't hide anything, but to sit and say that it must sit for 30 days to have feedback, I just don't understand what the purpose of a 30-day viewing is. So under jurisdiction, we want to work with private developers, right? So as they're building something, it's something we want to adopt. Well, whether we want to or not, go for adoption. Will this, as we're working with them, what are the exact standards? Will we hold road acceptance to? So how do you apply that equally to every project? And as you said, there's some projects that maybe you're not doing X for whatever reason, the need isn't there, right? We just want to make sure it's applied equally, because that's the last thing we want to go down.
I think the intention with the private development side is that sometimes developers, either of their own abolition or because they're required to, do work within the right of way for their own purposes, but that then creates infrastructure that we own. So thinking about a new entrance onto a public road, they would be doing work immediately outside of their entrance, but within the right of way. They might need to or be forced to put in a turning lane or some other sort of additional feature in that kind of way. When making those decisions and those approvals happen, this policy and the concepts of that would be applied in that kind of way. Not necessarily forcing the developer to develop fancy infrastructure just for the sake of there's someone we can point to and enforce.
And I know we don't want to do that, but I just wanted to make sure that we had, in your answer, I get it now. This
Very
was
good.
more of a question, right?
Yeah.
Under design, it's the first sentence, but it talks complete streets design recommendations shall be incorporated into all publicly and privately funded projects as appropriate. Again, it's who's deciding appropriateness. Is it financial? Is it, there is no need for X in that location of town? Just so as I'm thinking, and I would love, so this is going to put you on the hook. So, and I want it in Dave Douglas terms so I understand it. So it's under land use, context, and sensitivity. The second paragraph starting at the beginning. I want you to define it for me or explain it to me. In order to ensure that full consideration is being given to Topsome's physical, economic, and social setting, these complete streets principles in both development and implementation shall include community context as a factor in decision-making. The context-sensitive approach will include a range of goals by considering stakeholder and community values. Very broad. Help me, help you.
I'm not sure that the paragraph number 2 is even necessary at all. I think that we capture the need in both paragraphs 1 and 3 under that. But I think that the general idea is there's every area in our community is slightly different. Each one demands a different treatment. How about that? And it's not just the form of the buildings, it's the people that live in those buildings, it's the businesses that are around them, and it's the types of users that are on those segments of streets adjacent to them. So
As you're talking through this, yeah, hey, I'm in, right? I get it. And I fully understand it. And that's probably the difficulty of putting it into a policy, right?
Yeah.
We can't just call it, ask Andrew and he gets final say. But that's where I think more of where Matt and I both kind of felt the same, that Brunswick one had that more open concept to it. And I think
we'll make it happier.
Ours feels very stern. It was surprising. I guess that's how, when I read it and I wrote the word stern, and as I read the others, it certainly lined up, I thought.
It's good.
So that's my feedback.
Thank you.
Roland.
Yeah, first, Andrew, excuse me. I'm sorry, when I speak, my voice goes. But anyway, great presentation. You really, I think, described it extremely well. And my only comment after listening to David, Matt, and Ruth is that I think the frequent check-in with the board would be very helpful as we go through this process, at least initially, just so that we are clear on what the definitions are. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Marie, anything? No. Anyone else have anything for Andrew? No, I would, based on the feedback, because I know the committee is looking to have this adopted, I would much rather we table it, is rather than against it by any means.
There's no urgency to this. Yeah.
Right, but it certainly, I think there's certain, I believe that there's certain belief in it. I mean, not certain belief, but the board believes in it. It's just, we get those things and we're on board. So I would say more, we just table this and look for it to come back. So I'd make a motion that we, oh, now I got to scroll again. Table item 21-50. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Patty, that's you. Sorry. You got to do the vote.
David Douglas, how do you vote? You vote in favor or against tabling?
In favor of table.
Marie Brennan,
In favor?
Ruth Lyons,
In favor?
Matt Nixon,
In favor.
and Roland Tufts.
In favor.
Unanimously voted to table.
Thank you very much, Patty, and thank you very much, Andrew, and thank the committee for their work. We look forward to it coming back for sure.
I want to apologize on behalf of my wife for exposing her closet to the town of Topsome tonight. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, true. We will make 2151 consideration any appropriate action to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-6D to discuss labor negotiations.
Second.
Motion then seconded. All those in favor to enter executive session? We are into executive session, and hopefully next time, folks, after town meeting, you will see us live and in person.
This is our last Zoom party.
Yeah, this is it.
Man.
Thank you. See you
All
in a
right,
bit.
thank you.